Adolescents, of course, we have depression, but depression in adolescent is manifested differently than depression in adults. In adults, it's more of, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm too tired. I can't sleep at night. But with adolescents, it's very much irritability. Don't talk to me. Every little thing is leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. Slamming doors, whatever. And it that I mean again, we have a lot of teenagers who are like that because it's part of the developmental stage too. But you have to kind of take it into consideration. Is it to the extreme where but that's depression, and a lot of Hmong parents don't understand that that's depression. They think it's Liza là giờ như sẽ loser là giờ nó che ở bên nó che muốn đó che tên là phong yu từ nữa lúc này nó chỉ trong lên nó là sư, right? And yet it's a child. Sometimes it's a teenager just saying, help me. And I see a lot of teenagers, and I only see them once because I see them after they've come out of the hospital from a suicide attempt. And the parents are concerned, and they come in and see me, and they go home, and everything's better, and that's it. Parents are saying they're better now. But you know what? They're still screaming inside because they're so depressed and they need help. And it's the disconnect between how do parents understand that teenagers' depression is very real, and yet it's very disruptive to the whole family because it's running away behaviors, it's self-cutting behaviors, it's a lot of oppositionality. But we also see some kids who are truly oppositional. And certainly underneath all of that is the depression, but they're truly oppositional. They really don't care about anything anymore. We certainly see some who are truly conduct, and that would be where when you say lie mà lie the tiêm mà conduct là bây giờ the lie ở những chỉnh lie mà cháu tu sát tu nhia tu tí này mà chẳng mà you can't help but call them conduct disorders because that's what they're doing. They're breaking all the laws. And certainly they're suffering from other mood disorders, but really the most disruptive behavior they're having is all of these stealing and just aggressive behaviors. And then of course we have the parent-child relational issues, which is my parents don't understand me. Why can't they understand me? We're so poor. I hate my life. And then parents are like, "Mio, chimong luli," and so we have that, and I see that a lot as well. And then in children, what I see a lot are just learning problems and mental retardation, because that's where the schools are saying your child needs to be seen. And so the schools are flagging this based mostly on learning and behavior problems. And those are the ones that I see most of the time. Kids who are having learning difficulties, who are having behavioral difficulties at school, who are mentally retarded, parents are very motivated to bring them in because they want their kids to succeed in school. And so when it's about school, they're there. But if it's about depression, if it's about anxiety, not so much there. And oftentimes, Hmong parents don't really get that young kids can be depressed as well too. And so because they just say, oh, and they really don't see that kids are affected by whatever's going on around them as well too. And so sometimes they'll say, oh, Melinda, you telling your share so you share there you tell it down here your and so I hear that a lot too, and I'm glad to share that more and more parents are open to thinking about, okay, it is possible for children to be depressed. But when I first started this, it was just really hard for them to really see that depression does exist in children. Oftentimes, when I see parents in the or families in the therapy room with me, they really wanted that quick fix because the Hmong is used to that kind of treatment. So you you by say by say and so it is true you by say or you mora you by and so Hmong individuals are very used to that, but mental illness is a very pervasive problem. And like I said, folks who end up divorced or who end up with homicide or suicides, they have they have this mental illness that's been brewing for, or just these conflicts that have been brewing for a long time, and it's turned into some kind of a mental health issue, and so it takes a long time to fix that because it's very ingrained, it's very psychological, and you can't fix something that's psychological easily. Now, and you think about something that's not even stress related, somebody who's just anxious. They're just genetically predisposed to be anxious. Someone who's just worried about everything. Their first automatic thought that comes to mind is a negative thought, right? So let's say dad's not home yet, and it's 6 o'clock, and dad usually gets home at 6 o'clock. Right? That's the first thing that folks who are anxious think about. They don't think about, oh, or whatever it is. They don't really think about that because that's just their first thought. And it's very hard for someone who's just prone to anxiety to overcome that automatic thought. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy to really overcome that. And so it is not a quick fix. And like I said before, and I want to keep honing on this, is that mental illness can be treated if you get help early enough. Don't wait until it's too late. And one of the things I tend to think about this is when you think about just not just mental health, but physical health too. When you think about something like cancer, and we often hear in the community that folks with cancer, because the cancer has already seeped through their whole internal organs. Let's say they've got stomach cancer. Right? And so by the time they go and see a doctor, it's because by that time, of course, I'm too sick, let's go see the doctor. And the doctor's like, you had cancer. If you had came when the cancer was benign, we could have fixed it. And that's the same thing with mental health, is that sometimes when you start having these symptoms that are bothersome to your daily functioning, that are a bit disruptive to your daily functioning, most folks decide, well, you know what, I'm just going to deal with it. And then when it gets to be too severe and they come in, sometimes they can't fix it. So one other thing I have to think about is teenagers. When a teenager at the age of 9 is very defiant, oppositional, argumentative, some parents will say, but you know what? When they get to be 16, fire setting, all this stuff, and then they bring them in, and I don't know what to do with them, because by then they're already just really tough, and they don't need any help, and they don't want any help. And sometimes that's the case a lot with our Hmong teenagers who are gang affiliated, is that it's too late for them, because they've already gotten themselves into a lifestyle that's very hard to change. It's not impossible, but it is very challenging because they've already associated themselves with friends who are like that. They've already have a long legal history, and so it's sort of like, this is my life. Changing it around is hard. And even when they try to change it around, guess what? Who's going to hire them? Who's going to trust them? And so it's really challenging, but getting help early is definitely one of the more bigger message, so that you don't get to the point where it is too challenging to figure out. And then of course combining Western and Hmong treatments, and I talked about that.